The Grand Chamber of the United States Congress, a place steeped in centuries of debates, speeches, and declarations, had never been a stranger to history. But on this morning, something different, something powerful enough to echo across continents, was about to happen. Congresswoman Jasmine Powell approached the podium, her hands trembling as they gripped her prepared remarks, the American flag hanging behind her in its usual place, unaware that her words would soon transcend borders and challenge decades of political thinking. "I want to speak about what real leadership looks like in the 21st century, she began, her voice slicing through the usual congressional chatter, drawing heads up from phones and silencing murmurs. There was urgency in her tone, conviction in her eyes. This was no routine speech. Sometimes it doesn't wear a Western suit. Sometimes it doesn't speak our language. Sometimes it doesn't seek our approval at all." Millions would later watch this moment on C-SPAN, seeing the exact second the room's energy shifted, representatives leaning forward, aides pausing their notes, even the most cynical observers sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Then came the name that would ignite African social media, spark global headlines, and reach the modest office of a young president thousands of miles away. "I want to speak about President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso." A ripple went through the chamber. Burkina Faso, a nation too often discussed only in the language of coups, poverty, or instability, was about to be honored in the halls of U.S. power. Powell's voice strengthened as she painted the picture, a 36-year-old leader who didn't just talk about sovereignty. He lived it, rejecting economic models that failed his people and building systems that worked for them. A leader proving that Africa didn't need to be saved, it needed to be respected. Born in rural Burkina Faso, Traoré had risen to power through extraordinary circumstances, inheriting a nation long burdened by foreign dependency, exploitation, and political turbulence. While Western capitals met his military transition with skepticism, he turned inward, focusing on agricultural self-sufficiency, education reform, and resource sovereignty, empowering communities and restoring dignity without waiting for approval. "President Traoré isn't asking for pity or permission," Powell declared, her voice steady now, charged with purpose. "He's showing us that development doesn't have to look like dependency. It can look like dignity, it can look like self-determination." Lifting her paper, she delivered the final blow to old narratives. "We must stop talking about Africa as a problem to solve and start listening to African leaders solving problems their way. The West can, and should, learn from Africa too." In that rare, almost sacred silence that followed, it was clear she wasn't just praising a foreign leader, she was daring the world to rethink what leadership, respect, and partnership truly mean. The speech lasted barely 8 minutes, but in those 8 minutes something had been set into motion that would ripple far beyond the marble walls of the United States Congress. It would seep into policy debates, stir dormant conversations, and reshape perceptions not in the short, frantic rhythm of news cycles, but over the long, deliberate pulse of months and years. When Congresswoman Jasmine Powell stepped away from the podium, the sound of applause that followed was unlike the mechanical ovations so often heard in that chamber. It was uneven, layered, almost conflicted. Some representatives clapped with genuine enthusiasm, their eyes lit with the recognition that they had just heard something raw, unfiltered, and perhaps historic. Others applauded slowly, hesitantly, as if trying to process the implications of what had been said, their minds caught between admiration and the uneasy awareness that such words challenged the very framework of Western diplomatic tradition. Beyond Washington, the reaction was immediate and electric. Across Africa, WhatsApp groups buzzed as clips of Powell's speech were shared in villages and cities alike. Twitter hashtags surged to the top of trending lists, and Pan-African news outlets scrambled to dissect and contextualize what was quickly being hailed as one of the most unapologetic, unvarnished defenses of African dignity from a Western official in living memory. But the most consequential ripple of all was not digital, it was human, forming quietly in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, where President Ibrahim Traoré, a man who neither begged for nor depended on external validation, was about to discover that his vision for his country, his stubborn insistence on dignity over dependency, had been publicly recognized on one of the world's most powerful stages. The day in Ouagadougou had only just begun. Dawn spread its gentle gold across the city, painting rooftops and awakening the hum of distant markets, but within the modest presidential compound, the young president had already been at work for hours. At 36, he bore the weight of an entire nation's expectations on shoulders that should have been crushed under such a burden. Yet those shoulders remained unyielding, shaped by the harsh realities he had endured and the unshakable belief that his people's future could no longer be mortgaged to foreign powers. Gone were the days of gilded halls and ceremonial excess that had characterized past administrations. Traoré's government operated with the discipline of a field unit, lean, focused, and allergic to waste. His office was the embodiment of this ethos. No ostentatious displays, no ornamental luxury, just the bare tools of governance. A battered wooden desk, walls covered with sprawling maps of rural provinces, the margins of each map cluttered with his own handwritten notes on crop yields, irrigation needs, school repairs, and road-building priorities. A half-finished cup of coffee sat cooling beside thick agricultural reports, its heat long gone as he immersed himself in the painstaking analysis of harvest data. The numbers told a quiet but powerful story. Under his administration's embrace of indigenous farming techniques, investment in irrigation, and focus on water conservation, crop yields in several pilot regions were climbing for the first time in years. Rural migration, a constant drain on both villages and cities, was beginning to slow as opportunities reappeared in places once abandoned. And the once fragile agricultural sector was taking its first steps toward resilience. This was not the glamorous face of leadership that international media preferred to showcase. There were no photo ops, no staged smiles. But it was the heartbeat of a new kind of governance, one that lived and breathed among the people it served. Outside his office window, newly installed solar panels gleamed in the strengthening daylight, silently feeding power to the compound, their presence more than just a gesture of infrastructure. They were the physical embodiment of a philosophy of self-reliance, proof that sovereignty could be engineered one panel, one field, one decision at a time. Yet this path was neither easy nor universally welcomed. His rejection of certain foreign aid packages that came with strings he deemed unacceptable had angered long-standing development partners, who saw Burkina Faso less as a sovereign state than as a manageable client. His bold renegotiation of gold mining contracts to secure greater national benefit had rattled multinational corporations that had